Morley Bartnoff. Hello. Welcome to Reasonably Spontaneous Conversation.
It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate you having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. So why don't we go over to the couch
We're going
and
to do
sit
that.
down and have ourselves a good old-fashioned conversation?
Fantastic.
Morley, that was some lovely keyboard. What was your introduction to the keyboard and your attraction to it? Was it like young?
My mother and father were intuitive enough to know that when I crawled out of bed, when I was barely enough to stand, and I could turn on the AM radio, and I heard the Beatles and early Stones and rock and roll soul and R&B and instrumental music, that they needed to do something with music. So they brought me this little drum. And when that was too loud, they said that was a mistake. So they got a piano, and I was able to hear melodies and instantly, for some reason, pick them up. I had an ear. I have what I call is relative tuning as opposed to perfect pitch. I have
Yeah.
relative pitch. So
So,
then that's what started it. And I've been playing really ever since a real piano showed up in the house, maybe since I was 11 years old.
Morley, both of us, I'm older than you are. So I was born in 48. You were born in 55.
Yes.
All right. So both of us, me for different reasons, because I grew up in the South in a very conservative place. And so I did not get involved in the 60s during the time. You were too young to get involved during the 60s, but still you got an influence during that time with the music, right?
I had a wonderful lady friend who was a few years older than me, and we were living in Vegas. She went to Los Angeles and she brought back psychedelic comic books, a couple of those newspapers that were like all about the hippie generation, the LA Free Press, and she brought back an album called Love Da Capo. And I just stared at all of it, and then I started listening to it, and I knew that things had changed from what was regular rock and roll to something that was far more progressive and experimental, and I was all in.
Well, now you were there, but I fell off because
Mhm.
once I was still there with Rubber Soul. I was still there. But boy, when the Beatles got into psychedelic, I didn't know what the hell they were doing, why they were doing it. I did not get that at all. It was much later that I was able to grow myself into that. Did you have an idea that you wanted to be a working musician? Because that's one of the things I wanted to talk with you about. Because in
Sure.
our
From the get-go, when I was in 10th grade at Edward Clark High School in Las Vegas, they had a um, talent show.
yeah,
The whole school was there. It was in the
yeah,
gymnasium. And my mother, perceptively enough, brought me a really old microphone that you could put in the bass of the piano. So for that assembly, I learned Summer Rain by Johnny Rivers. Do you know that song? It's
not
beautiful. Okay, I would say go listen to it. In the middle of it, he sings Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. So when I played the instrumental version of that, I took a big rock solo like Jerry Lee Lewis or Elton John. And at the end of the song, the school stood up and cheered. And I thought, this is what I want to do.
Oh my
Where
God,
else?
you did. I had the same experience in
Tell
junior
me.
high school, except I was doing it, but I did Bob Newhart's. I covered
Brilliant,
his, and
brilliant
that's one of
comedian.
the things about comedy that I want to ask you about, because in order to get better at music, you cover other people and you learn that. And as someone who loves performing, I covered Bob Newhart,
Love him. Love
and
all his shows,
suddenly the
all of his shows.
audience, and that hit that. I went, oh yeah, yeah, that there is nothing quite as high, irrespective of what chemicals I've ever had,
Right.
that ever quite matched the purity of an entire audience
Yeah.
laughing in unison.
Laughter and music, and there's certain humor. I try to tell jokes and stories when I'm performing, and usually the audience is responding, and it's another level, like the correlation of the arts, which I think was why Bowie and
Right.
certain people were so brilliant. They correlated all the art forms and
E-
became characters. And
Exactly. Well, Morley, I have a theory about that, and see if you can
yep,
follow me through on this. Is that comedy is all about beats. and music is all about beats. And so when I see someone like Sinatra or Mel Torme or any of the great musicians, they can do comedy because they can hit those beats.
Acting too. So dialogue, it's you could have a
It's
great line
beats.
and it may
Yeah,
not read, but how you say it or how you pause, it's about the intervals in between the words. It's
yeah,
about the space where you're building and people are you've engaged them. They want to hear what's next.
yeah. Well, I have a, it's that I love the idea of that we're at our age that we are working artists, where we get a chance to continue our process and to continue. So, can you talk about where you are today as an artist? What are the kinds of things that are exciting you,
You know,
impelling you? Because
it's such
I
a
want the inspiration.
it's such a powerful question. I'm going to tell you why. I can go through days. It's been slowing down as I've been getting a little older. Like I can make an excuse that when COVID shut down, I was in this production of Just Imagine, a John Lennon documentary, and I had like 18 gigs in that last February, and it's a short month. And the day that we went into lockdown, they all went away. And a couple magical things happened. I'm going to get to today in 1 minute, but we're having a
Oh,
great
take your
conversation.
time. No, I because I really am interested during this COVID time
So
how it all impacted us.
two magical things happened during COVID lockdown. And one is I got a phone call from my good friend John Easdale of the band Dramarama. They have a
Mm.
really big song on alternative radio in the mid 80s that they still play on 8 stations in LA today. And that song is called Anything, Anything. And I was a giant fan of the band. I'd gone to shows. I wound up recording and playing with them when they did reunion shows. They're still working today, although I'm not playing with them anymore. But when he called me, he said, Morley, that album that you went into Village Recorders and played on 8 songs on a real piano is finally coming out. We had recorded it like 8, 9 years ago. I thought it was never going to see the light of day. He said, check your mailbox tomorrow. I'm going to send you copies. So when I saw my name on this album of a band that I loved, that I played real piano on, it made all of that COVID nonsense intensity go away. And the second thing that happened in the 1980s, I was in a band called Burning Sensations, and we had an MTV video called Belly of the Whale. And they played it 3 or 4 times a day. It was on all KROQ and all the alternative radio stations. And we had that magical time where if you had a video, you could play everywhere. Well, that band wasn't speaking to each other after that, which happens in relationships and bands all of the time. If you
All
know,
the
you know.
time. They are.
And during that break, I got a phone call from a promoter and said, Morley, can you talk to Tim McGovern, who used to be in the motels, and talk him in? I have shows for you guys to play the first time in 30 years. So I tried to contact him. He didn't believe me. And I mean, this was like the reality. It was like a comedy show. He thought that the Rob I was talking about was our old bass player and not some gigantic promoter who could make this happen. So finally, I gave the real Rob Juarez Tim's phone number. They talked, and Tim called me and said, Morley, I had no idea. You didn't explain it properly. And we got to do 3 Burning Sensation shows with members of Oingo Boingo, with X. We played 3 great shows right after COVID loosened up. So those two magical things happened. And it brings me to today. You asked a question, I'm going to finally answer it. It
Sure.
took me a while, but
I love it. I love it. The journey is as certainly as fascinating as
it's
the
all about the
destination, as
journey.
all storytellers know.
It's all about the journey. And Jack, who was the president of Elektra Records, once told me it's all about the journey. Like you can get hung up on what did or didn't happen, but it's all about what your process and how you got there. So today I woke up and this radio station I'd been listening to, it's actually a streaming, it's called Pop Rocks Radio. And I had sent a song and I'd sent my bio. And the guy said, make sure you're listening today. And he put my picture up and he played my Cosmo Topper song, The Law of Attraction, and then he played Belly of the Whale by Burning Sensations, and then he played a song from the Dramarama record, and he featured me, and he said all these positive things. It was so uplifting, and then now I'm talking to you, which is incredibly uplifting, and then tonight at 8 o'clock, Mark Englert, who's the guitarist in Cosmo Topper and plays with Dramarama, is coming over, and we're going to create the set. We have a show, maybe our last live show, August 2nd, at the Redwood Grill, downtown LA. So all this is happening today. My days aren't always like that, but today it is.
It is, and we can't. I mean, this is the lovely part about keeping my eyes up instead of looking down
Oh, so
or
true.
looking backward or trying to, because if and it is harder. It is harder to do that. I'm interested in that in your song Law of Attraction, because I
Uh-huh.
feel there's something about the universe that is interactive. I was talking to Dr. B.A. Alexander about this, and we were talking about how the universe has something there, something about what we're doing and what I put out. There is a reciprocity that
Yes,
happens, and
so
so
true.
are you experiencing any of
Well,
that?
well, so much of it, and just if I can quote a couple of my own lyrics, as semi-pretentious as
Are
that
you
may
kidding?
be,
I would hope
it's
that.
so the break is intend to have a perfect day, and joy will surround you. All that's like unto itself is drawn. That which is like unto itself is drawn. Believe in the law of attraction. Hold that thought and allow it to happen. Intend to have a perfect day, and joy will surround you.
One of the things I love about the word perfect, for me, it doesn't mean without flaw, it means complete.
Yeah,
So
it's beautiful.
it is its own, with its own foibles and challenges and ups and downs, but it's
Magical. And I'll say this about that song. I had the gift of being able to give a particular DJ on KROQ 106.7 who went to Little Steven's Underground Garage. I would give him music of things I used to like. And I would go to Cantor's Deli on Fairfax and he would play it and they would get airplay. Some of them really became big. And when I handed him that song, he called me and he said, "It's about time." Like he was like, and it was such a perfect thing, and that create inspiration allowed me to write the follow-up song, which is called For dot 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 the time being. It's not temporary. It's about existing in the time being.
yeah.
And when that song was played, the line on that is, um, we intend these tunes to uplift you every time they're played. So I included the intention in the song. And then the other part of the song says, when you're down, appreciate the blame away. And here's my quick story about this song.
Appreciate the
When you're down,
blame
appreciate the
away.
blame away.
Let
It's
me
one of
sit
the
with
more
that just for a
difficult
second,
things to
please.
do because I'd rather sit here and blame people and tell you what's wrong, and then nothing is ever going to change
For ourselves,
for
because
ourselves.
I'm much more, my challenge has always been, and this is one of the ways, I was listening to your podcast, and we were that previous podcast that you did,
Sure.
and you were talking about marijuana. And one of the things that helped me over the course of my life, that marijuana has been such a blessing to me. I don't smoke anymore,
Yes.
in that, but it's the my was that it allowed me to get to a place of self-acceptance, because I really had that real self-criticism that's always putting myself, that fire of self-loathing. And it
Yes.
was the only thing that whatever it was, that governor, it anesthetized that governor, that allowed me then to have access to that. So I wanted to talk a little about that with you, to see if that resonated at all, or it has something that you can
You
share
know,
with me.
I think that there's a feminine energy about marijuana, and I cannot say that with a lot of other drugs. They almost seem like over angry. Listen, there's a drawback about you're not supposed to do something every day all the time. But at times, it can be a bridge and it can open up things to you.
Yes.
And I would say I'd be not inauthentic if I said to you that during my marijuana partaking careers and some psychedelic excursions, that they didn't help inspire those bridges. The first time I took ecstasy, when
Same
it was
here.
still legal, I wrote an entire song and lyric in the mountains on my baby Casio, which it was called The Line of Love. And I really felt it was one of my more perfect songs, and it happened once. Now, trying to recreate that experience, it can be tricky. If I can just put a period on the song for the time being, because I'd like to illustrate for your viewers about
Yeah.
the magic of creating an intention. So that song, the producers of the movie The Mayor of the Sunset Strip, which is a documentary about the DJ Rodney Bingenheimer, and the producers, one in particular was a friend of mine. I submitted that song to be on the soundtrack. And then I got a call from him. His name was Chris Carter. He's one of my dearest friends now. And he said, Morley, I apologize. That song slipped through the cracks. I wanted it to be there. It didn't happen. So, of course, I was like, oh, that's so frustrating. It could have been so major. But I went and supported that movie anyway. I went to all of the screenings. I even could tell you that in the end credits, I could visualize where my song could have gone. And listen, here's what happened. One day I'm working at the Screen Actors Guild, which was my day job for almost 18 years until I got a great deal with the show Just Imagine, and we went to Vegas, a John Lennon show. But I got a phone call. I picked it up, and Chris said, Morley, they're removing the song from the end credits, and they're replacing it with your song today. And that the intention of that song, which was which was also when you're down, appreciate the blame away, which I did, and we hope these songs uplift you every time they're played. That song manifested itself into the end credits of that movie. And if you go watch the movie on YouTube and you hear the song and those lyrics, remember I told you about it here.
You know, I think of the time that you and I lived, this time, and now with the introduction of AI and
Yeah,
all the work which is literally changing everything. There will never be a time like what we had up until that time, but we lived that time that set the table for this happening. But it's going to be a unique. It's they're going to write about what that was like.
everything's changing as we speak and faster than a lot of us can not only imagine, but a lot of us it can be fearful, just like the internet was fearful in the beginning. LimeWire was fearful when you could download music for free, but that's usually almost now with subscription. That's how most of us all get our music, unless you buy vinyl like me.
Exactly. And now, what is in your windshield? What are the ideas that are percolating in the thing? How are you allowing this next time, and what are the things that are niggling at your creative consciousness?
It's a duality, because I see a lot of my dear friends that I've been very close to. Some of them have transitioned into the non-physical.
Exactly,
So
which is something you and I are going to do.
without a
This
doubt,
is
all
our
of
this is
us, we come in and we
our
go out, right?
who
There's very
knows?
few
I feel like
guarantees.
when I get up in the morning, I feel like I'm playing with house money.
Listen, every day above ground is a beautiful day. Dylan said that. Every day above ground. And so I got to remind myself. So really, I've been focusing on doing podcasts, making sure my music is available. If I'm not here, my spirit would love it if I knew that people were still able to access some of my music. If you go to discogs.com,
Which we will
I'm
put
on,
in the link, everybody.
we'll
So
put
you
in a
could
link.
just go
Yeah.
right down on the
Sure.
console, and you'll see the
And
link
you
that
go to
will
my
have it to it
name
right
and you
there.
do a little search, you can see I've played on like 88 different records. Some of them are duplicates in different countries. I don't own a lot of publishing. I didn't make a whole bunch of money, but I've made my mark, and I'm honored to contribute to music. And if you're uplifted by hearing me play or any of my lyrics, then I've done my job.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, that's what I love about being able to lay the tracks of what we're doing. And that's where I love the idea of a working artist. that we are able to keep roof over our heads,
Yeah.
keep the health care going, and continue to create, because isn't that what it is? Isn't that the process? Isn't that what we're here to do?
I have no plan B. And I admire people that do. I have some really good friends. They're painters, they're artists, they create dolls. My dear friend Amy is beautiful. And, I want to mention a couple people that Probin Gregory is one of my dearest friends. He was in the very first earlier versions of Cosmo Topper, and we're going to play our final live show August 2nd. I just want to mention him because he's too busy now playing with Todd Rundgren and going on a big 6-month world tour with Weird Al. And he called me today, said, gosh, I wish I was with you. I said, Probin, it's just appreciating when you were there. So
There is such an opportunity to, there is a graciousness about you, Morley, that is so pulling to me. I mean, your willingness to uplift others and to create with them ends up being such an additive.
I appreciate you saying so. Now, I don't know how much time we have left, but I have a little bit of a show and tell about some of the recordings that have impact. Only 4. Are we okay time-wise?
Oh,
Do we have
you
a few more
betcha,
minutes?
you betcha without, this is our time, Morley.
Great. And I want to show the first record is the Maxine Sellers album. This was on Capitol.
Yeah.
Stevie, most people don't know who she is. Stevie Wonder is a guest. Nick Venet, a very well-known producer, produced it. And I'm mentioning Maxine because I was in a production. Had a theater background. I was in a production of Jesus Christ Superstar. And she came to see, and in the middle of that show, I played piano. And she came backstage and she said, Morley, I have an album out on Capitol. You're not going to get rich, but if you come to my house in Benedict Canyon and play my piano, play my songs, and let's see what's going to happen. So right when that Jesus Christ Superstar ended, I went to her place in the canyon. It was this beautiful canyon. It's actually Beechwood. I'm sorry, I get my canyons. Yes, we Canyon. I get them messed up. And I went and I played the piano, and she said, "You're in my band." So every Monday night for a year and a half, we played a place called the Blah Blah Cafe, and a lot of the artists that would play the Troubadour later would play there. So it was an incredible experience for me. And one night we went and opened for Ramblin' Jack Elliott, who had just gotten off Dylan's tour, and the place was packed. And I got to play that piano. I was 20 years old. And that piano is the same piano that Elton, Joni, James Taylor, Carole King, Herbie Hancock, I can take up your entire podcast. They had played that piano and the audience loved it. It got a great review in Variety. And I thought, once again, this is what I want to do. So I wanted to appreciate Maxine Sellers. May she rest in peace. She was a folk blues artist. You have to do a search on her. And then this is Andy and the Rattlesnakes. We had been a band for 20 years. Excuse the reflection.
Yeah.
This album, 2 of the members of this band are non-physical now, since we recorded this. But next year, the Andy and the Rattlesnakes documentary is coming out. It's called Last Summer to Dance. And in there, we will honor the musicians who have passed. We get to see a lot of the people in this band went on to play with much bigger bands. And Andy went to become a music doctor, got his PhD in teaching other kids. That happens a lot, where you find a bigger niche. So that's the second thing. And then before I get to my own record, this is Susan James, who's a dear friend of mine. She's an artist she would be great on your show. I've been with her. She sings on For the Time Being. She's doing harmonies. But I got to play piano on this. This is her brand new record, and it's called Time Is Now. If you'll do a search on the video, it's an incredible thing about taking responsibility, but changing things the way they are now without me getting political, but environmentally and protecting the earth. I wanted to show that. And then finally, this is the Cosmo Topper album. It's celebrating its 20th anniversary. It's pure fast vibrations. You can get it on my Bandcamp, and it has both the original liner notes and an updated thank you where I get to thank all these people. You think, oh, I wish I would have thanked them, and I got to go back and do it. And the one last thing I want to say about this record, it's not just an album. It comes on this beautiful sea green
Oh,
color vinyl, and we use this color because it was environmentally correct. They didn't have to open up a new can of paint, so they used combination of colors, so they didn't. And you got environmentally, and I just want to show you that the spindle goes through my nose.
I saw that. I was laughing. I just thought that was
So
tremendous.
that's Cosmo Chopper's Pure Fast Vibration. I'm extremely proud of it. Both Law of Attraction and For the Time Being are on that record. You can find it in my Bandcamp, and you can stream it everywhere, literally.
Wonderful. And that's what I want you to do is make sure and give us the link.
I'd be honored.
This is wonderful. What haven't we talked about that's on your mind or on your heart?
Let me see. If I could say that in spite of the challenging aspects of our political world
Yes.
and the ever-changing world in which we live in, that art and creativity can uplift you and at times act as a point of change. I know that when it was so moving that Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young put out the song Ohio within days, and Instant Karma was recorded within days, and they were able to bypass the challenges and get those out. And great change has happened in the past. I'd like to say that the protest generation of the 60s stopped or greatly contributed to ending the Vietnam War. And
Yes.
that's all what I'll say about all of that.
We have an opportunity today to get out of our silos, because
Yes.
in one of the things that I believe that social media has done is to drive us into silos and and get into the attention economy. So this is an opportunity to have the music to call us out of the silos, to call us out into these places where we together. Here comes the sun.
Yeah.
Allow us to be together. Allow us to imagine. And you have to understand. I love talking about this because I am not a musician, and I am tangential to music as far as it being a deep part of my core, like it is with you. But I so appreciate. I love the parallelism of the arts,
Yes. Without a doubt.
because they that was one of the things that I loved. And when I was a child, the first time I heard harmonies, when I heard those close order harmonies of the Mills Brothers, or I
Oh, yeah.
heard or the Andrews Sisters, or any of the things, harmony just got it to me. And that's what I love about the collaborative process. I love it when you and I can have a harmonic conversation to where we're building on each other, and we're
Yes.
learning from each other, and we're getting a chance to do that. That to me is magic.
That henceforth the title of my record, Pure Fast Vibration, Cosmo Toppers, because a pure fast vibration is when you resonate with an idea and or a person or people, and you all are equally uplifted and in a harmonic agreement, because the universe is full of harmonies. There's the lost chord.
It
And
is.
when you're communicating on a profound level, you're harmonizing with that chord and in alignment, however you want to feel that spiritually.
There's a mic drop moment. Thank you. Thank you, Morley.
I
Thank you for
appreciate it.
joining me. And
I
could we not
appreciate it.
make this our last? Would you join me? Have you
I,
had a good enough time that you would join us again?
I'd be honored. Keep me in the loop. This is really one of my more fun things to do, because it's really about communicating and uplifting. And thank you for being that part of it, because that's the hologram. Thank you all, and I appreciate it. And I really appreciate your producer. I've been very inspired by her, as she will tell you that I will see her questions and prompts on Meta, formerly Facebook, and I will send her songs because she's very inspirational in that way.
That's Renee Jaworski, and
Renee,
she's done it, and she is making this possible.
yes.
All right. Thank you,
Blessings
Morley.
to Renee. Thank you all so much. And I can get a copy of this eventually, right?
Oh, within days.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for
All right.
having me.
And thank you, everybody. And we will thank you for joining Morley and me on this reasonably spontaneous conversation. And we'll see everybody next time.